Today we're going to be looking at another video from the Lockpicking Lawyer. Specifically, we're going to be looking at this one here called the Master Lock Paradox, a Model 410 LOTTO padlock. LOTTO stands for Lockout Tag Lock. LOTTO stands for Lockout Tagout. This is an industrial safety type lock that's quite common at nuclear plants as well as other industrial facilities. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tyler Folse. I'm a nuclear engineer with a little over 10 years of experience in the commercial nuclear power industry, from engineering to operations to emergency response. I don't claim to know everything there is nuclear, but I can certainly share some knowledge. Let's get right into it.
This is the Lockpicking Lawyer, and what I have for you today is the most baffling product made by Master Lock. It's the Model 410 Lockout Tagout, or LOTTO padlock. Now, this is not designed to be a security device like most other padlocks. What it's designed to do is to be attached to the control mechanism, something like a switch, a power supply, a valve of industrial machinery or equipment, to ensure that it's not turned on while a worker is inside or in some sort of zone of danger.
That's exactly right. Locks like these are typically used, like you said, for control applications. There are some additional ones. Sometimes you'll see this device compared with other physical restraints, like you'll see them on valves, breakers. So it's not just the lock, but the lock often holds the little piece of equipment in place. You're going to see these tags hanging on them. They're going to have name, department, contact information. This one would be for a bit of a larger device, but this person did that and verified that it is safe to perform maintenance on whichever piece of equipment that has been locked out. And only they are the ones, at least administratively, who can remove them, because they can have the locks and the keys, because they are the ones that determine when the maintenance is complete and they can put the piece of equipment back in service safely.
We get away with the plastic lock body. We have a non-hardened 6mm shackle. But the interesting part of these locks, and what makes them so interesting, is the core that's inside. This actually has a relatively robust core. It is a 6-pin core. It has a relatively paracentric keyway. It's one of the better ones that Master Lock makes. And this is full of security pins.
What's interesting, this is a completely different lens. I've seen these sort of things all the time, but never really looked at the actual lock itself in detail. I mainly look at the do not operate, the person who owns the lock. There's also a record sheet that is updated when the equipment has been locked out and when the equipment has been signed on, and like the work and like who's working on the job and when it's released and how it's documented. But as far as the actual operating mechanisms of the lock, I guess I never really looked that much into it. This is interesting.
I can't take this core out without breaking the lock body, but I do have another core that I've opened up for you, so you can take a look at what's inside. And you can see we have 5 spools and 1 lightly serrated pin. So pretty good pinning on these. And that makes them very good practice locks, particularly with the paracentric keyway. It's probably my second favorite practice lock out there after the American Lock Model 1100.
That's funny.
And I actually
and a bit
keep
ironic.
a carabiner full of these
Practice
things
with LOTTO
for practicing. I'll take one of these with me, go to watch a movie, and just pick them open while I'm sitting there on.
That's funny. And yeah, there's a station that usually keeps track of all these padlocks that are not in use with the keys, and each key is unique, required to be. It's an OSHA standard. You can't go to a locksmith and make another. Well, you can, but you shouldn't go to a locksmith and make a copy, because that's the whole point. Is that only one person controls the hazardous energy associated with this system.
Couch. So what we're going to do is pick this guy open. I'll show you how I approach them, and then I'm going to explain why this lock is the crux of the Master Lock paradox. So let's get this open. I usually use top of the keyway tension with a bent 40 thousandths pry bar, and I use my number 7 hook in 18 thousandths. Now, all of these locks are pinned the exact same way with that lightly serrated pin in the number 5 slot. So that's always what you're going to want to hit first. You, of course, on the way back should probably check to make sure nothing else is binding. So we have 1 loose, 2 loose, 3's loose, 4, actually 4's binding a bit. Got a little click out of him. 5, okay, let's
just love how
set. We just
calm
dropped
and
into a little
methodically
bit
is
of
when
a
he does
false
it.
set. Let's go on to number 6. I think I just overset 6. Let me release some tension. Okay, I think we got 6 set. Back to the beginning. Counter rotation on 1, got him set. Counter rotation on 2, got him set. Number 3, counter rotation. Come on, number 3. There we go. And got the lock open.
Quick and easy.
So, I'm very used to picking these so I can get through them relatively quickly. But don't be deceived. They're actually pretty tricky locks to open up. And I know a lot of people who have a fair amount of trouble with them. Now, why is this lock the master lock paradox? Well, the issue is that this has one of the best cores that master lock makes in one of the worst bodies that master lock makes.
Okay.
And I'm not entirely sure why that might be. Now, I know some of you are thinking right off the bat, well, it's a LOTTO lock. You need a lot of different differs for the keys, so that's why they put the 6-pin core in there.
Yes.
But take this lock. It's the Master Lock 6835, another lock that Master Lock makes for lockout tagout purposes. It has a more secure aluminum lock body. It has a hardened shackle as opposed to the non-hardened shackle.
I've never seen that
and
one on the
left. And it even has
left.
similar pinning in here with spools and 1 lightly serrated pin. However, this one only has 5 pins in it. There's another lock that Master Lock sells for lockout tagout purposes, and that is the number 3. And this one has only 4 pins.
That looks super
and no
old school.
security pins in it. So it's not because this is a LOTTO lock that we have that pretty good core in there, because Master Lock does make other LOTTO locks with cores that are significantly less robust.
One other thing to point out is, yes, it is important to keep LOTTO locks locked. They need to be able to be emergency released. That is to say, you can't get a hold of the person and you need to place a system back in service immediately and it's still locked out. You need to be able to basically cut these locks off in the event of an emergency. You just need the system to say combat an accident or something like that. One important thing to keep in mind with LOTTO is it's not about nuclear safety. It's about industrial safety for the people who are performing maintenance. And nuclear safety, which is about protecting the reactor core, protecting the public from an accidental radioactive release, that actually trumps this. There is specific guidance in nuclear plant procedures for emergency releasing a LOTTO under certain conditions have been met. And one of them is, just attempting to contact the person who owns the LOTTO. Now, there are other configuration control locks. They're usually a different color. These red locks are do not operate or danger locks. There are also yellow ones that are more of a caution. You can still allow them. You can still operate that equipment under certain configurations. And another thing is not every device necessarily requires a lock. Other colors you'll see blue locks that are more of control locks and can be done under certain testing things. Some of those are more site dependent, and sometimes those aren't actual locks. They're just little tie wraps you have on there. And there are also sometimes configuration control things. And configuration control is more about making sure a system is aligned properly in its normal standby condition. A lot of that's usually protection against accidents. And you'll see some of these with locks, but it's usually a valve that's just locked in place that's designed to be open or designed to be a certain number of turns or notches open, but is kept there just to make sure it stays in that particular configuration. So LOTTO does not encompass all aspects of safety at a nuclear plant.
And now we can go straight through the master lock lineup. We have, for instance, this is a model M5. It's one of their more beefy
thick lock.
Laminated steel padlocks. And this one only has 4 pins and no security pins. So a relatively robust exterior. However, the core is nowhere near as good as the core on this little plastic lock.
That's just
we can go
fascinating
up higher
to me.
in the master lock lineup with the M15. This is a lock where they did almost everything right in building the lock body. It's an extremely strong lock, yet what we have for a core is a 5-pin core with no security pins. So we have the lock body they did everything right on, and nothing right in the core. And then we have the lock body everything is done wrong on, and everything right in the core. And
I had no idea about that. That's fascinating. I mean, you see these things all the time.
On to some of Master's higher end stuff. We have the 930 here. And this also usually has some spools in it, though I've found a few that have standard pins in them.
It's like twice the thickness of the other lock.
This, again, only a 5-pin lock. Then we get the hardened version of that, the Pro Series Model 6230. Same thing, all we get is a 5-pin lock. Even moving up to the M930, the Magnum version. Again, 5 pins. We do have security pins in here, but still nowhere near this 6-pin lock.
So, not a lock expert, but I wonder if there's like this one intimidation factor, for lack of a better word, where you have this big, beefy, solid, steel-looking piece of lock that, just by virtue of it looking like it's substantial, can ward off people from attempting to pick it. And because I would have lost that bet if seeing that lock on the left is a core that's not as good as the lock on the right.
So that, my friends, is the crux of the master lock paradox. How did we get such a good core in such a terrible lock, and then at the same time put such terrible cores in locks that are relatively robust? I'm sure I will go to my grave never understanding that. So, if you do have any questions or comments, please put them below. If you like this video and would like to see more like it, please subscribe. And as always, have a nice day.
That is fascinating to me, how this little lock that I've been using for a while has one of the best cores ever, and these big, girthy looking locks aren't as good, at least not that part of it. But thanks so much for the recommendation. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.